Digitization is a new normal. It's impacting every aspect of our personal and professional life. And the pandemic has been a catalyst to help us realize the need of digitization more profoundly. And rightly so, because it has kind of created a proof of the concept that the companies who had leveraged digital technology had minimum business disruptions. So let me contextualize this with the topic of today, that how digitization in procurement can impact chemical companies. So, as we heard earlier in the session by Dr. Bhattarai, the industry size is almost globally about $5 trillion plus. It employs over 20, over 20 million people. As per the survey, which is published by Deloitte, the average cost of procurement in the industry is anywhere between 50 to 70%. And there is a potential to reduce this cost by 6 to 12% through improvement of the efficiency in the procurement function. And this can have an impact on the bottom line to an extent of about 3 to 8%. Now, let me contextualize this with some of the figures from the Indian chemical industry, that we kind of spend in the procurement about close to 70% of our revenue. The net margin at the bottom line is anywhere between 7 to 15%. So that means every percentage savings through improvement of the procurement efficiency can improve the bottom line by anywhere between 5 to 10%. So, what is a typical challenge which you face in the chemical industry? The industry is segmentized from a very large segment of petrochemicals to very small segments of fine chemicals. This scattered supplier base across the world. There is a huge dependency for many of the chemicals on the commodity prices. Let's look at the price variations which we have just recently experienced. The crude oil price, which was dropped to $30, which is now hovering close to $70. And that's going to impact the price of the solvents and petrochemicals, which could be the ingredients for manufacturing of the variety of other chemicals. This industry is primarily, except for the bulk chemicals, is driven through batch processes, which has a huge transaction load. There are a huge number of ingredients which are required to meet up the batch requirements, and that would mean that the transaction efficiency in the procurement has to be at the highest level. We've seen with whatever challenges which we have recently faced that the huge capex expenses is coming up to increase the capacity of the Indian chemical industry. There has been a heavy dependence also on China, and now we want to internalize those production capacity. Is a huge amount of capital investment which is coming up, and managing those huge amount of capital investment is a huge challenge. With tight project timelines to meet up the demand, this becomes another point of very serious challenge which is required to be addressed. And there is a lack of availability of skilled procurement professionals. It's so important to have the people who have the understanding. I mean, there are very limited institutes which are offering highly qualified procurement syllable courses in their syllables, because it's primarily today it's driven through the experience of the people. So what CPOs are looking for, as per the survey published by Deloitte, For over 80% of the CPOs in 2021, the top priority is going to be a cost and risk reduction. And the key challenges for cost reduction, which has been identified, is information gaps. With scattered supplier base, it's impossible to collate the information on real time. You require information on the demand and supply patterns. You require information on input cost. You require information on various analytics. You require information on your suppliers. All this information leads to a serious gap and impacts efficiency in the procurement. Considering the huge transaction load, it leads to maverick buying. I mean, there is hardly any time which is available with the buyer to think through strategically to design the right buying strategies. Very large complexity of the capex sourcing, which is typically is you're buying the material or the capital equipment for the first time, you're dealing with new suppliers, and the sourcing is a big challenge for acquiring the right capital equipments. There is an absence of insightful analytics. These analytics are driven by an isolated system of the BI tools or Excel files, where the questionable data purity exists. And when you are needing this analytics, at that point of time, there is no real-time availability of the analytics to leverage on your strategies for negotiations or strategies for buying. Every supplier you add into your supplier pool leads to higher transaction load. Say if you are buying 10,000 line items, you add one supplier for each of the line items, you are talking about 10,000 transaction points. If you're dealing with three different plants, you're talking of 30,000 permutation combination of the transaction loads. So this is a highly demotivating factor for a buyer to keep on adding supplier and manage those supplier effectively. So there is a lack of competitive environment. This leads, the transaction loads lead to larger lead time at times, pushing organization to carry inventory loads to mitigate any delays or disruptions in the supplies. Huge amount of supplier risk. I mean, that is one other thing which is in the top priority of the CPOs because they are dealing with large number of suppliers located across the geographies. And again, the transaction loads are so high, so there is a very limited time available to analyze the risk factor relevant to each and every supplier for each and every item. I already mentioned about shortage of competent category managers and serious issues related to accountability. There is no visibility in the entire transaction cycle. If you're really looking at any decision-making cycle, how a particular decision has been arrived, a buyer has taken, what are the kind of negotiation levers which he has used, how much he has been fair with each and every supplier, there is a very limited visibility which is available in the system of any organization. So all of this leads to a possible cost leakage of close to 2% to 22%. And I just mentioned about this in the previous slide and related that to the impact of the bottom line. So let's look at, say, if you're having an average of 10% cost leakages, this could be impacting your bottom line. So that means if you improve your efficiency by 10% through reduction of the cost of the procurement, that can improve your bottom line by 50% to 100%. So how digitization can help address this challenge? So what is digitization? Digitization is converting data into the computer readable format. Now, it could be process relevant data, it could be processes itself. And that is where internet has helped us to convert all our processes into a digital format. So what can it result to? It can establish real-time connectivity with your suppliers, internal stakeholders, logistics provider, and all supply points which are relevant. And what does it mean? That means you can have instant availability of information on prices of the market from various approved as well as non-approved suppliers. You can have instant availability of price variables of the commodity prices. You have instant access to the supplies which are made by the supplier or the supplies which are falling due by the suppliers, all relevant parameters which are needed to ensure a smooth supplies of material in time. All these informations are available on a click. It brings about complete transparency in your all decision making process. Exactly what has happened and what has transpired between buyer, supplier, your technical stakeholder, everything is visible on the central database. Everything is available as a trail of every single transactions. You can improve your environment and make it more competitive, because whether you're dealing with 3 suppliers or you're dealing with 10 suppliers, you're not going to increase your time for transactions. Second thing, you can leverage technology to have instigative bidding from the supplier for superior price discovery. It brings down your overall transaction time by almost 60 to 75%. That means you have more time available for design of the strategy, to collate more information, to leverage them in your negotiations. It's a central pool of data. So there's a complete knowledge redundancy. Everything which happens in the procurement function, everything is available as on a central repository, and the person who has access can look at all the information which are relevant to him. It also helps you to standardize your process. Means any process improvement which you are bringing, you ensure that it is transmitted across all categories, across the organization, and you can reap the benefit of the improvement of the process, and it becomes a kind of a standardized process. Practically, you remove all obstacles of audit, because the entire trail of decision is available. I mean, I was talking to a few of the leading audit companies, and when I asked them, what do you audit? And they said, we audit orders. Now, orders are already the decisions. How did you arrive at that decision? There's a very limited information to an extent what the buyer had presented to the auditors. Here you have the complete trail of every single decision, how a buyer has come to that decision. It simplifies capex and services sourcing, which is one of the most complicated area of sourcing, which is driven by BOQs, activities, that is also constantly changing. And this is primarily driven through Excel file working, huge amount of work on the Excel file, and very limited assurance for the purity of the data. Just imagine one Excel cell, if you put a wrong value, it can lead to a wrong decision with a colossal loss to the organization. When you are able to digitize your entire process, the byproduct of that is that you get an insightful analytics, real-time insightful analytics, which can help you to reduce your vendor risk, because you know exactly what are the capabilities of the vendors, what is the sustainability rating of the vendors, what are the qualitative parameter, how a vendor is rated, what are the service parameter, how a vendor is rated. So you can, to a great extent, mitigate the vendor risk. It brings about literally complete elimination of administrative tasks or non-productive tasks. Follow-ups, there could be triggers which can go as per the desired requirement of the buyer. There could be automatic comparative charts, which can be generated directly from the quotes which are submitted from by the suppliers. All the processes which you are currently handling through manual intervention, all of this processes relevant administrative tasks can be automated. This also brings about improvement in the quality of decisions because the insightful analysis, like you can measure now a negotiation behavior of every supplier for every single line item which you are buying. You have instantly spend analysis available. You have instant availability of the relevant commodity prices, exchange rate variations. You can link in case if you have some idea about the bill of material of the vendor, you can link these prices to the pricing, which is what a vendor is quoting. So in that case, you can also look at a zero-based costing model on a dynamic manner. With availability of time, availability of analytics, you prevent maverick buying, which could be a major cost burn, a impact on the organization. You get timely supplies because there are alerts which are available to alert you well in time to ensure that you get those supplies and you can get in touch with the supplier at the right time to get your material in the most appropriate manner. It reduces coordination between various stakeholders, you, your technical team, between you with various other stakeholders in your buying organization, with your suppliers. All this information is available to all the relevant stakeholders. You can collaborate with them online. You can put in online conferences. All this can be recorded also as for future reference or for audit purpose. It can be looped into a transaction. With all this, it simplifies audits because you will be able to filter out transactions which are not meeting your SOPs on a click, and on another click you will be probably able to get the entire trail of the negotiation or how a decision has been arrived, and maybe a justification which a buyer has given for an exceptional case. Very important factor: when a human resource leaves a procurement organization, he kinds of takes away a lot of knowledge. And even if you get a competent new human resource, it is that resource is going to take time in order to acquire understanding of the ecosystem of supplier and how it is relating to the ecosystem of the organization. Most importantly, it makes you future ready. Data is a driver of the future. Data purity is the foundation of any analytics. And the world is moving towards RPA, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. And the digitization is the base for all these new technologies to be successful. So that's the future. So it makes you future ready. What leading consultants have to say, McKinsey say that typically organizations who have digitized effectively, they are 25% more efficient in their price discovery, and they are able to generate larger procurement savings. Bain & Company says digital technologies provide a competitive edge, make it more agile process, improve the quality of decision, reduce risk, and enhance innovations. How should you start your journey? This is a very important question, and I think you should be very well prepared to start your journey. You need to be very clear about what objectives you want to achieve through digitization. And how are you going to measure whether these objectives have been appropriately achieved or not? Very important factor: get your top management aligned because it is going to need a change management. And that is what can be successful with the alignment of the top management. Create a strong internal order who has a domain understanding and a great project management skills. Very important, another element is to be clear about your requirement and then identify suppliers who can closely meet your requirement with a compatible solution. One of the most important factor which you need to keep in mind, don't take your supplier just on the word. You need to take a POC of the solution which is being offered by them to see its compatibility with what your needs which you have identified. Rate each of your supplier on criteria of functional capabilities, technical capabilities, past track record, sustainability, post-implementation support, very important, flexibility for customization, and obviously cost. Design a strong implementation and rollout plan, change management strategy, and then roll out. But very important post rollout, you need to measure the success and take steps wherever you think there is a lacuna. What we do, we specialize in offering end-to-end solution for digitization of procurement. Our key customers in pharma, chemicals, textiles, BFSI, FMCG, cement, automotive, and various other industries. We are very prominently placed in India in all these industries. How we assist you? We can help you design your digital journey. We offer you no cost experience that once you have identified your objective, once you are clear about how you are going to measure, once you have articulated your requirement, we offer our solution for you to try it out at no cost to see how suitable it is to meet your objective and your requirements. We will also guide you to see you move step by step and not go whole hog. You get your success tasted at every step before you take the next step. Very important factor, we completely own up your success. And our business model is a unique business model which is aligned to your success till the pendency of your use of our solutions. Thank you. If you find this interesting, you can be in touch with us. If there are any questions, I would be happy to take those questions.
Thank you for such an informative session, Mr. Shah. We do have a questions actually from the audience. The first question is, as of today, where does India rank in terms of implementation of digital solutions?
I think it's a great solution, a great question. India, the digitization is getting more prominent of late. And I would say that of late is as recent as high prominence has come out of pandemic itself. Because the companies who had digitized effectively, people have been able to notice that they had the minimum disruptions in business. And that is where the need has been realized very, very strongly in India. So I would say that we were at the nascent stage about 3 to 4 years back. There were a few companies who had done some good work, but not many who had taken strong initiative to digitize procurement process. But it is happening very fast because now it has become imperative.